Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rod Gantos.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the delayed start today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties at the studio, but that's what you get for watching a live show.
Oh, it's my fault. Go ahead. Tell everybody here.
You know, I do like that about you. You know, is it the Catholic in you?
It is the Catholic guilt.
Okay.
I have to admit, it was my fault. We ran into a little delay. I was out of the studio, and by the time I got here, we were a few minutes late.
And he didn't bring lunch. Okay, he should have brought lunch at least.
I should have. Yeah.
Should have.
Right.
But anyway, I do apologize. We will run to about 1:30, hopefully, Paul, or a little longer than usual.
I'm open because we don't have a show after yours until 2 o'clock here. So
I really do want to get my guest on the air for the duration of the show. I am very honored. Loretta, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
For those who are watching us on YouTube, you probably recognize my guest today is former Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, who has done a lot for Orange County and is, for some odd reason, still wanting to do more. And she's running for the 3rd District seat for Supervisor, for the Board of Supervisors, seat that was recently vacated by Todd Spitzer, who is now the County District Attorney. So, Paul, please, for those who are listening, give the telephone number where they can call in.
949-330-7760. 949-330-7760. Operators standing by.
Operators, by which he means himself. But please call in with any questions for Loretta, because...
Or you can tweet us at OC Talk Radio.
You can also tweet us on OC Talk Radio. If you are watching us on Facebook, do share the feed with your friends. This is a very interesting time, I think, for Orange County. There's definitely, we have been saying this on the show for a while, that there's been a changing face to Orange County in some aspects. In other aspects, we tend to be still the same people. And I was having a conversation with Loretta before the show, and we talked about how, most of us basically work hard for the money, and we are basically fiscally conservative, socially liberal. We like our beaches. We like our fresh airs. We are very protective of things that we hold dear. And I think that is a common thing, regardless what side of the political spectrum you may reside. I pride myself on being somebody who lives in South County, and that I am here to tell you that we are as diverse up there as we are in North County. It's a very interesting time, I think, to be in Orange County. So, Loretta, welcome. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today and to talk to fellow Orange Countyans. As you know, I've lived all my life here, so I'm very protective of my Orange County, right?
Absolutely.
I've seen the changes. I grew up here when there were really orange groves, and we could see why it was called Orange County. And I've seen the development, and I've seen more diversity come in,
right.
And I've seen... I've also seen, some difficult things like, I have 8 kids, and none of them live here in Orange County or California because the housing cost is so high.
Absolutely.
And I remember when I was growing up and, making my life as a young adult, and a lot of my friends moved out to Ontario and Riverside. They had lived here, they had grown up in Orange County, but it was too difficult to own a home, to have what your parents had. I think we come from the first generation where our lives are not necessarily better, the quality of life, than what our parents had, than what we knew as young people.
Right.
And I think for a lot of Orange Countyans, it's a dismay. It's like, this is my home. This is where this is where my memories are. This is where my friends are. How do we make Orange County happen for all of us and all the new people who want to come in and live here, because everybody wants to come here. So you said, why would I want to continue to work for the people of Orange County?
I was teasing, but
and the answer is, this is my home.
Right.
People are always amazed. My mom lives less than a mile away from me. My brothers live about a quarter of a mile away from me. All of my family is really here, other than the other Congresswoman, right? My
Your
my
sister.
sister
Yeah.
Linda, she
Yeah.
represents in Whittier, and because of that, she lives up there in the Whittier area. But there's a lot of interchange, especially between North Orange County and the Whittier and South portion of LA County. You know,
Right.
we always find either that part of the families live up there and part of the families live
funny.
down here. So it's always an interesting thing.
Well, so it's interesting because my folks live about 6 miles away from me. My sister and her family live about 3 miles away from me. So when you say that, it resonates because yes, we are very much vested in the community and not vested in our own selves only, but multi-generationally almost, right? And I know that you went to school, I think, at Chapman, didn't
That's
you?
correct.
Right? And you are definitely vested in the community. And the issue, some of the stuff that you mentioned, I think, is something that's on everybody's mind. I mean, the affordability factor is very huge. And I've said this on the show before because I see it, and unfortunately, I don't think we are really addressing it well, is that every time I say these communities are losing people that have in their blood vested interest in the communities, when we're losing them because they are unable to start their lives in these communities because they can't afford to live in these communities, we are losing more than just people. We're losing people that have a very much an interest in the betterment of that home, their home, communities.
That's correct.
And we're not providing, I don't know, I think from my perspective, the housing issue is definitely something that we should be, looking at in a sophisticated, sustainable manner. I think the other aspect is, we have a lot of innovative spirit in Orange County. You look at the gaming industry that's here, you look at technology, pharmaceuticals, but even more importantly, things like surfing industry, things that are innovative, entrepreneurial in spirit.
Did you know,
Yeah.
for example, and excuse me for,
Yeah.
butting in here, but it is a radio
It
talk
is. You
show,
are the
so,
guest. You can butt in.
Did you know that Orange County is the #1 spot in the nation between Orange County and what I would call Orange County and South County and North County, San Diego? So this area
Okay, yeah.
is the place where the most patent and trademarks are requested
did
out
not
of
know
our
that.
U.S. Patent Office. I know that because, believe it or not, about 5 or 6 years ago, the head of the Patent Office was a guy named David. He had, I think, a Greek name, as I recall his last name. But David was a Fountain Valley guy.
Okay.
And at that time, his 84-year-old mom and dad still lived in Fountain Valley.
Okay.
And I became good friends with him because I worked, having Allergan and Baxter and
sure.
Edwards Life Science, and the list
Yeah.
goes on, right? I would do a lot of work with respect to what we were trying to do, which was to, especially with medical devices, getting them passed, moving them through the through the Food and Drug Administration, which is a long haul.
Sure.
So I worked a lot with David. He was the head, and of course he loved Orange County. He was an Orange County kid,
Right.
and so one of the things that we did was we did a remake in the patent law, and what we did was, at his, he said to me one day, "Loretta, do you know that we only have one patent office in all the United States?" And he said, "It's always been here in the Washington, D.C. area. It was in Arlington." He said, "Wouldn't it be great if we could have some satellite offices?"
That would make sense.
And then he explained to me, he said, if you have a face-to-face meeting when you bring your application in with somebody at the patent office, you have you cut the amount of time by about 10 months to get your patent okayed.
Oh, how interesting.
Now, 10 months is a
That's a
long
long time.
time in patent, in the patent life, right? I mean, because
Absolutely.
it's who comes with the idea first, right? That's the whole thing. Let's protect the idea that you have or the product you've made. Let's protect it. 10 months is a long time in patent life in trying to get that patent. He said, so if you have a face-to-face, it's going to cut it down by 10 months.
Wow.
So can you imagine, and he's the one that told me the #1 place is Orange County. He said, can you imagine if we had a patent office in Orange County? He said, because it's so hard. Okay, it's easy. If it's in Arlington, it's easy for someone from Virginia to go or
Sure.
from Maryland to go, even from Delaware to go, or maybe from New York City. It's just a,
Right.
2.5
Right.
hour
To get that
$30
FaceTime.
train ride, right? But to go from California to go out there, you have to get a hotel, you have to get flights,
Absolutely.
etc.
It's more arduous.
So one of the things that we put in the patent renewal was that we would set up at least 2 new satellite offices. The first place that was chosen was Detroit.
Okay.
At that time, remember, Detroit was kind of like on the
Depressed,
downslide, right? But the interesting thing about Detroit was it has a lot of patents now on the processing, the factory processing of things. It's very interesting. They've really made a comeback and just being smart about how to use technology and how to use systems within producing whatever it is that they're producing.
Yeah.
And then the second place we had was to bring it to Orange County.
Okay.
So this was like a little devious thing between me and David trying to get it here, right?
Yeah.
Hometown boy, Congresswoman.
Absolutely.
At the last minute, it was moved. It was moved to the Silicon Valley. Well, we had 2 Northern California senators, right? So they had more power than I, and they, even though the Silicon Valley is not where the
majority of the patents
of it comes out
That's
now.
fascinating. I did not know that at all.
So little things like that.
I'm
the
not-
people don't know about Orange County, but that I know because I've had the privilege and the honor to represent this area for many years.
How many years?
20 years.
20 years.
20 years. So I know the ins and outs.
Yeah, just a little bit.
You know, I know the players. I know the ins and outs. I know how we lose a patent office. And it's not that you lose a patent office. I told you one of the best reasons why you would have it. But here's the other thing. So now you have professionals, people who work in the patent office, who are government workers. Now they can... They're lawyers, for example. They could go and teach adjunct at Chapman or UCI Law School.
Yeah, there's additional stuff that comes out of that.
You know, and they can teach. Then they can teach us what's on the cutting edge of patent law, for example. Or more importantly, we have a program within the patent office where we embed an employee into a company.
Right, that has a lot of patents that are
exactly, so that there is synergy between. So the patent office is learning and
There's
picking
a
up the
facilitation that's happening in the company. Absolutely.
And or even this, you have all these great people who now want to give back to community, and so they can be tutors in math or science to our young people and after-school programs. There's a whole bunch of synergy that goes on with having something like that.
I mean, these are skilled jobs that then basically also have a ripple effect on other stuff around them. So with your knowledge about Orange County being as extensive as it is, it's interesting that you are now running for a supervisor seat, because it almost seems to me like, it's like it puts you in a position where you're now potentially very impactful at a very local level.
And I hope that will be the truth. I hope I have talked to people. I believe I will win this election. It's in 12 days. It's in March 12th.
Yeah.
So just a few days away. We know we're ahead in the polls. We know we've been working very hard at it. And so people ask me, well, what would you bring? Well, first of all, this type of knowledge that a lot of people, the other candidates for sure don't have. I mean, I know the industry of Orange County. I've worked with it all. I know at the federal level where the grants and where the monies and where, I can help the new Congress people that we have who are now in control over there in Washington, D.C., to tell them, we need this, and this is how you go about getting it. Go talk to this guy.
Right.
I know him personally.
Right.
Make a relationship. Pick up the phone. Do that. Get these monies that we need back to Orange County. And the time that I was in Orange County, I brought billions of dollars back to Orange County. And the same was true for Sacramento. We used to send up just Republicans to Sacramento, so we would never get anything. So I would be the one that would have to go up and get the state share of whatever it was that we were trying to do. And now we have more of a mixed bag. We have some Democrats who are going up in a very controlled Democratic Sacramento. Again, we can work together to bring those monies and those efforts back here to Orange County. So yeah, I think I bring a lot of that.
You do. I think you definitely have a very unique offering in terms of being able to bridge across that because of your very extensive time and experience having done that. And so I'm actually kind of like really excited about that because, again, on the station we talk about all news is local news. There is a certain level of, kind of grassroots, in the trenches impact, positive impact sometimes that if you bring somebody that is that skilled, that is that seasoned, and put them in that role, they bring all of that to bear positively in that new position. Let's talk about some of the things that you see because of your familiarity with the county that is either issues that the county is facing today, because if the county is changing, there's an aging of the county to a certain extent. There's different realities in terms of land use, development space. We are maturing, and it's interesting that Orange County, I mean, and even in my industry with design and architecture, Orange County never gets its respect. It's like, no, it's Los Angeles, it's Chicago, it's whatever. And I laugh because if you know and you're steeped in it, you know this level of skill and sophistication that Orange County has. And to a certain extent, some places, it's like, well, it's okay. We're all right that you don't know. It's like, we don't want you to know, right? But you've sat in that seat, So what are some of the challenges that Orange County is facing? What are some of the things that you see at the board level that you're hoping to basically positively impact?
Well, certainly, remember that I'm running in the city's election
Right.
again, just a few days, 12 days, let's say, that we're going to have, and the people who get to vote are in Yorba Linda, they're in Villa Park, Anaheim Hills, and the part of Anaheim where I grew up, which is near the Santa Ana River, Orange, where I now live, near Chapman University, Tustin, Irvine, most of Irvine, not Shady Canyon, and
Right.
a couple other places, as well as the unincorporated. So all that beautiful wilderness area that we have out in the canyon area,
Sure.
what we call it. So for those people, and this is very important, for those people, it's a very parochial thing. I will admit it, the fires.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole issue
Yeah, it's
of
a
the
huge-
fires, right? Because we saw this past year the fire in Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
The fire in Paradise took over 100 lives of people who were trying to get out and couldn't. It took 14,000 homes away from our housing stock. I have a very good girlfriend of mine. Her mother lived in Paradise, got out with her, the shirt on her back,
Wow.
and with her husband and out, and they're now living here in my girlfriend's house because they're
It's just
not.
devastated. They had nothing.
It's nothing, right? The same, honestly, and I hate to put it this way, but that's what we're worried about when we're out there in this wilderness. We're attached to the wilderness area. Last year there was a fire, as you know. It came down the canyons, which
It did.
comes down with the canyons and with the Santa Ana winds, and if the Santa Ana winds are strong enough, they'll propel it all the way in. And I was at my mom's house, and the phone went, which is the emergency evacuation, right? We evacuated. We were very lucky. We were right on the edge of the evacuation. We got out quickly, but there were a lot of people stuck in traffic because the ingress and egress into those areas is very limited. So fire. How do we deal with a national forest on one side and a state park on one side encircling these homes that we have there and the canyon areas? So much better. We need a good fire suppression plan. We need buffer zones. We kind of got to stop building more into that wilderness area. And that's a big contention out there because the people who live there understand it. I was at somebody's home the other day as we were looking at some of the proposed development that was going further than even their home, and they said, really honestly, Loretta, our home probably shouldn't have been built. And they can't even get insurance anymore. They can't get fire insurance
Because
out
of
there
the danger.
because we've seen what is happening up and down the state of California. So that's a big issue for the people of the 3rd District. I mean, it's not for the coastal people, it is for us in the 3rd District.
I actually think there's different natural issues,
disaster,
right, in those areas. But yeah,
Right. So that would be one. And by the way, I carry not the fire authority, because the fire authority doesn't give endorsements, but I carry the firefighters endorsement because they have seen over time how I have worked to get in federal funds to cut back some of the undergrowth, et cetera, that happens in the national forest, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the issues there. The second issue, which is on everybody's minds because we saw it, we lived it, we saw it. I live near the Santa Ana riverbed, the homeless issue. Remember what the Board of Supervisors does. Aside from regional planning of transportation and water, air quality, again, these fires, for example, they're really there as the social net to catch and to help those people who are falling through the cracks, those people who are losing their jobs,
very
those
well
people
said.
who are losing their homes, those people who... I mean, we're very fortunate, but there are people who, are born with some disabilities that make it more difficult. to get through life. There's some people with some mental health issues that make it more difficult. Certainly, mental health is another issue, but we'll get to
Right.
that in a moment.
Right.
But this whole issue of the homelessness, and we saw it manifest itself. We saw it just painted right in
Amplified.
front of our eyes there on the Santa Ana riverbed, although it occurred in various areas in Orange County.
For years.
So what creates homelessness? Because, everybody thinks the answer is, let's just put them in a shelter, let's get them out of the way, we don't have to see them, and they have a roof over their head. But that's not what creates
It
homelessness.
doesn't sustain or solve the problem either.
What creates homelessness? First, the housing crisis and the housing crisis of when everybody was losing their homes, but more importantly, just the lack of available affordable housing
Yep.
vis-a-vis what we earn in Orange County.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two.
And thank you for saying that, because I think that sometimes is mostly missed. When you say affordable housing, in some areas you get the not in my own backyard attitude, and you also get the, you're talking about squatters and you're talking about tenement housing. The fact that we don't usually mention, and you just did, thank you again, is to equate it to the level of Orange County, because it blew my mind last year when somebody was telling me what actually qualifies somebody for aid. Like it varies by area, and it was something like in the range of $80,000 or something. Basically, you still qualified. So thank you for specifying it that way, because yes, we definitely have an affordability problem.
We have an affordability problem. And we can get to the housing crisis in a minute. That's also its own separate issue.
Yeah.
Then we have the issue of physical health. So if you're going along fine and you're making your mortgage payment, you're having a good life, and you get cancer, guess what? All of a sudden you can't work. If you can't work, you can't pay your mortgage. If you can't pay your mortgage, guess what? They're going to
Can't hold
foreclose
on
on
the
you.
house.
It doesn't matter that you're ill, that you can't work, that you
Yep.
can't. That's not their concern. The concern of the bank is, how do I get my money back? And so physical health. We know prior to the previous big housing recession, 70% of bankruptcies were caused by physical health problems. The
Wow.
main earner got cancer or some other thing that did not allow them to work. The third thing is mental health illness, whether it's the person themselves or somebody in the family, because trying to find mental health help, etc., it's really difficult.
This is almost shameful.
Very difficult. And
Yeah.
again, number one responsibility for something like that is the county. So mental health. And the third is addiction. Because if you get addicted, opiate or otherwise, you probably can't hold down a job.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's generally not just one of these things. Over time, these culminate and they
Cross
combine,
over and combine.
So even one of us, let's say we find ourselves on the street tomorrow, you stay out there long enough, you will get some sort of mental health issues. You will get physical health issues being out in the
Exposure,
elements, and you will probably end up in addiction. So it's not an easy thing to clean up, if you will, to help a person to do. But we have to come with the mindset that that these people can be reintegrated back with us. And how do you do that? It's called wraparound services. It's called mental health possibilities. It's called some form of housing. It's an addiction beds, an ability to go through a detox program and to really be able to stay off of that. Of course, it's the physical issues that you also need to help with. So it's all these wraparound issues that occur. Good training for you to be able to get a job, not just a minimum wage job. Because I can clean myself up, I can get my self-esteem back together. I can be trained to go and work at a McDonald's or someplace. But if I'm just making minimum wage, I'm not going to be able to get housing, right? So this is the job of the county.
Well, and I saw some. I mentioned this to you when we were talking. That sometimes the focus on this show tends to be regarding seniors and multi-generational households and things of that nature. It is interesting because the other sort of misnomer, I think, when it comes to the homeless is that the impression, the visual in people's minds, that it is somebody who is young, who is maybe lazy, who has a drug problem. It is funny that what is missed is that it also impacts seniors. It also impacts people that are families. In fact, that is probably the largest growing category when it comes to homeless. And that is because the minute you equate that possibly could be a population that's impacted by this problem. How can you hold on to a resisted attitude to solve it?
And there really isn't a resisted attitude. People understand now because they did see. We had 1,100 people there on the Santa Ana River bed. People did see they were families. They were, I've been out of the Congress for 2 years. People ask me, well, what have you been doing? Well, I've been doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the pro bono things that I've been doing is there's a nonprofit. I've been raising private funds to build a 30 micro-unit apartment building to house unaccompanied homeless women.
Mm-hmm. Another category, definitely.
Yeah. The only shelter in the whole county that deals with unaccompanied homeless women. Think about this. A woman on her own out in the street is the most vulnerable person out there. And this will blow your mind away. About 30% of the women are over 60 years of age. So, guys, that could be your mom out there.
Yeah.
That could be your grandma out there on her own, without a roof over her head, subject to everything that goes on out there. So, I didn't wait. People still think I'm the Congresswoman, right? And of course, I get to carry Congresswoman title for life. I mean, that's I guess one of the benefits of
Nothing
they would
shabby
stop me.
about that.
They would stop me and they would say, "Congresswoman, what are we going to do about the homeless?" Well, I don't have this like totally big silver bullet. We're going to take care of all of this at once, right? But it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. I am raising funds from private groups to private individuals to build this, and we're going to house, because in this shelter, Wise Place in Santa Ana, we do transitional housing. So what does that mean? We have 67 women in there. It's like a big dorm sort of a situation. We get them from places that have cleaned up on addiction. We do self-esteem. We do the social services at the county. It's a lot of wraparound services. We teach them how to go get a job. They go get a job, and then after 6 months, they're, okay, it's time for you to go out into the real world. Well, the real world on a minimum wage job doesn't get you anything, right? So you're back on the street. So that's why we said, okay, we're going to do a permanent apartment building, micro units, 187 square feet, but it's going to have everything you need.
Yep.
Now, do women want to live there for 5 years or 10 years? No. Let's think about this. They just need help. They got to get on their feet.
Right.
They need a place. They need a place that's their own. Then they're going to.
It's a hand up, not a handout.
Exactly. Then they're going to figure out, okay, I need to get a better education to get a better job or what have you. They're going to go through the process that all of us go through, how we're trying to make our life fit to the best of our abilities. And so they will do that. And it's there's no screaming or yelling, not NIMBY in my backyard or anything. People really want this. It's in a good neighborhood next to the services. That's the important thing.
Support services are critical.
You can't put a shelter out in the middle of the canyon area,
where I can't
like
get to it.
One of my opponents said. He said, "Oh, let's just put it out there in an old school." And guy, there's nothing there. I mean, there is a lot. We need to work with people to bring them back to life.
Well, I think, Loretta, to your point, I mean, when you take an attitude like that on this, you're almost taking an attitude to basically just put the problem away rather than actually solve the problem.
To take it out from my sight.
Yeah.
So the answer is, I'm not about discarding people. I'm about how do we bring them back to life? How do we make them part? I got to tell you, and I should have brought it with me. It was just the most yesterday. I got something through the mail. It was a little package. It had a book in it. It was a book that was written by a 93-year-old veteran.
Okay.
And he had been in World War II. He had been in Normandy. He had been in Okinawa and Japan. And he had a little thank you card in there. And he says, "Congresswoman, thank you." He said, "You and Laura Martinez was the head of my casework when I was in Congress. 6 years ago, you gave a darn about me when I arrived at your office." He goes, "I was broken. I couldn't get my act together. I was out on the streets." World War II veteran, right? What we call the greatest generation, right? And he said, "And you guys put me back together again." And he said, "I want you to know that I am speaking in schools. I'm speaking before groups. I've got my life back together. I was on CNN the other day being interviewed." He said, "Thank God that you and the people who worked with you there really care about people." And made me cry reading his
Well, that's
thank you card.
That's a huge personal positive impact on one person that then again ripple effect has impacted positively others.
We do it one after the other. You know,
We can do.
Government is not there to solve all of the problems. But those of us who believe in public service, we are there to help people to get back on the right track.
So I got to ask the question because I'm still confused about this. Why did it take such a public exhibition of the homeless problem for people to act?
It actually took a federal judge. It took
On
Judge
top
Carter.
of that, correct.
It took Judge Carter.
Yeah.
You know, so they were sitting, you know, for 2 years, we're sitting watching this encampment happen in Anaheim on the Santa Ana River Trail. And the decision by the city of Anaheim and its council people was to throw them off. Throw them off of the river trail. That's when the judge got involved.
Yeah, vacate them off the river trail. I remember
exactly,
that.
right?
Yeah.
So that was their answer. Throw them off.
Yeah.
That's when the judge got involved.
Bus them to somewhere else so that it's not our problem.
Well, one of my opponents said bus them to San Bernardino, you know. So, I mean, it's really interesting. Now, of course, they all love the home. I've been in different forums.
Well, and that's
with
why,
them.
and you know, and Loretta,
it's been ridiculous.
And thank you for actually expressing that way because that's I agree with you 100%. It's like all of a sudden now we're embracing the homeless. It's all of these people that are interested in homeless and all these special interests are coming out. But again, I question, do we have a sustainable solution that can actually last? And why is it that we have not acted before?
Yeah. Well, again, it took a federal judge. So now they're standing up. Oh, you know, when I was at the city of Anaheim, we've done this. And you only did it because the judge forced you to do it, you know? And so it's very interesting to see that. But anyway, so the judge said, county, and it was the county's responsibility. County,
and that's what I'm talking about.
These people get a roof over their heads. So we spent hundreds of millions of dollars so far in just housing them in motels and other situations. Remember, I told you about Wise Places, which is where we're raising this money to build this. We actually took 90 homeless, unaccompanied women off the riverbed, and we have them there now at Wise Place.
Congratulations.
You know? So we've been working really hard at this. Look, the judge has said every city will take responsibility for it, and that's his edict, and that's what he's working through. But it's not just about, again, it's not just about making a place for them to live. It's about, bringing them back to life,
Absolutely.
as I like to say, bringing them back to life. So
if not by the grace of God.
Could be one of us.
Yeah.
Could be one of us. Everybody's living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, very few of us. And, you know, in Orange County, we see the real distinction between those who have a lot of money and those who have, because of the tourism industry, because we have Disneyland, because of our restaurants, because of our motel workers,
Right.
etc., we have lower paying jobs. And that's why the affordability gap for housing is one of the widest in the nation, is right here in Orange County. So in other words, it might cost more for a home in San Francisco or San Jose, but they make much more on a medium wage. That the affordability
Smaller.
gap there's actually smaller. Ours is one of the largest in the nation, if not the largest. You know, it kind of, we compete with a couple
So
other
how do
places.
we address that? How do we get buy-in from those entities that basically have competing interests?
Well, the first thing is the physical health. Remember, I told you different things: housing, physical health, mental health, etc. The first thing is the physical health. So one of the things we did, one of the things I'm very proud to have done, was to be the only vote out of Orange County for the Affordable Care Act. So the Obamacare, as people call it. What did Obamacare say?
Thank you, by the way.
Obamacare said this. It said, if you are poor or indigent, out of a job, or you're working but you can't afford health care, your employer doesn't offer it, etc., we will make it available to you. We will make a health care plan available to you. And by the way, we will subsidize it. So if you're unemployed and you're not making any money, you can't afford a health care plan, there's a $300 health care plan that you can get. 97% of it is paid by the federal government, 3% is paid by the state. Oh, by the way, for the county, in Orange County, if you have that plan, that's the plan you would get, that the people responsible for that is the county of Orange, is the County Board of Supervisors. So they have a place called CalOptima. That's the agency. That's where we have that. So you have your healthcare plan, and they are the ones that manage it out into the different networks and everything. CalOptima used to be the envy of every county in California when we began. Now it's like 8 weeks before you can get an appointment.
Wow.
There's something wrong, and we have pumped so much more money into it because remember, our taxes are coming back 97% from the feds, 3% from the state. It's about $4 billion over there. We've had an increase in revenues, and yet we've had a decrease in services, and the county is
crazy.
responsible for that. So guess what? I need to get on that Board of Supervisors because we're going to fix that. The second thing is, when I was in the Congress, we passed something called mental health parity. So it was Patrick Kennedy, one of the Kennedys, right? It was his bill. His good friend, his bill. They had addiction and mental health and other things going on in the Kennedy family. He saw it firsthand. He himself experienced it firsthand. So he knew the importance of getting help. So we did this bill. I helped him find the votes. We passed it. So you have a health care plan. Not only do you have physical health, but you must, by federal law, have mental health there. Great. But if you don't implement it, if the services aren't there, if the system isn't adapted to be able to do that, then it's like you don't have it, right? Again, who is responsible for that? It's the County Board of Supervisors. So they have not built out the network to be able to have that mental health parity happen. How do we do that? Well, one of the areas, to tell you the truth, we don't have enough mental health clinicians, mental health professionals, right? And I saw this with nurses. I saw this with nurses about 10 or so years ago. We did not have enough nurses in Orange County, in California. So we worked to get federal funds, and we worked with St. Joe's Hospital and Santa Ana Community College to put in programs to
encourage people
to help them. Yeah, it's very expensive to train a nurse. We also did this at Cal State Fullerton, has a nursing program, so we could increase the people that we needed. We need to do the same thing in the mental health arena. In order to get a degree, a professional degree in mental health, one of the things you have to do is have at least 1,000 internship hours clinical, right?
On the job, so to speak, training.
But you can't be paid for that.
Right.
So how do you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how do you go to an internship for free for 1,000 hours? That can be a year or two's worth of work if you're trying to you're going to school. And
how are you going to sustain yourself?
How do you sustain yourself, So we really need to think about how we train up mental health professionals. And then we need to put the system in place. And there's some money to do so. As I said, the money comes from the feds and from the state to build out a system. By the way, this hits every family. No family is immune to mental health services, right? You can be as rich as you want, and you can still have problems. And I've seen this. And if you're rich and you have knowledge, then maybe you can go to a private system,
find resources.
Exactly. Yeah. But even if you're a smart cookie and you're trying to find help for your son or your daughter who's got addiction and self-esteem and mental health, and I'm not talking about you have to be some schizophrenic, or I'm just talking about the stresses that are on life. Our families every day. And I wish I could say that that's not true, but when you see the suicide rate creeping up, especially in our young adults, and our kids in high schools and stuff, there's a problem.
Well, and where do you get those skill sets? Because stress is a killer. I think you hear it almost to the point of cliche, but where do you get those skill sets? That basically, where do you get them early enough in life so that you can basically navigate those currents of life as they hit you, those waves?
You and I are more experienced. We've had to cope. We've learned to cope. We've learned to understand what's important, what's not. But when you're young, when you're 16, when you're in love, when your boyfriend
Oh,
doesn't
it's
like you anymore,
catastrophic.
I mean, you want to throw yourself off a bridge, and I mean, and I see this over and over. So how do we get those coping skills to our young people in particular to make sure that they
Well, and tell people it's
mature
okay to
through
actually
that?
get them.
Exactly.
To take the stigma away from the fact that you don't have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just suck it up and deal with it. That it's okay to seek that kind of help.
So we have the stresses.
Yeah.
We have the financial stresses on the family. We have and again, back to the housing situation, addiction. In the public system for Orange County, we only have one place that has rehab beds for addiction. So if you want to get yourself cleaned up, there's not a bed for you, generally speaking. In fact, we contract out at the county with institutions in Long Beach and Pomona, and we actually ship our people for rehab outside of the county.
I know people don't realize that.
And we have money sitting in the bank to be able to put in these rehab centers. But here's the problem. Oh, not in my backyard, right? Everybody's not in my backyard. Well, we got to put them somewhere because we want to bring our people back to life. I'm not buying into let's just discard them and it's their problem. No. They are part of our fabric. When they get stronger, we get stronger as a community, as a society. And so that's another thing we need to work on. How are we going to do that in conjunction with some neighborhoods where we can make it holistic and it can work?
Well, and we're going to take a break here in a minute, but I do want to just add to what you're saying is, again, we touch on the fact that this is something like with mental health that touches everybody. It doesn't matter your economic level, doesn't matter what neighborhood you live in. It's the same thing with addiction. And it's funny because those who have the means will seek that private, off the radar kind of place for their family members because there's also a actual impact. Like when you go in and you seek help, and I've had people that were military. This is another layer that we don't discuss enough. Veterans, people that have served the country, that come back, that have these issues that they're dealing with, whether it's PTSD or just mental and emotional issues. And if they actually are on record for saying that, I had a gentleman here who is basically in San Marcos on campus that helps GIs. And he was telling me that when he basically came back from his tours in Iraq, he was in a dilemma. He could not actually go and actually admit that he had issues, mental issues and PTSD issues, because it would put him at a disadvantage at that time by reporting it. And that is a very sad reality.
It's a career ender, and it's unfortunate, but that still has a stigma. I know because I sat on the military committee for 20 years in the Congress, and I worked on this issue. My husband is a 23-year U.S. Army infantry officer, retired colonel. I remember, and he's also a JAG. He's also he's an attorney that works in, out of the military, retired, works in Orange, has its own firm there. But I remember he was working with a young man that clearly had been really impacted with PTSD and other issues, was still in the military, and the father was, paying for my husband to try to figure out, how do we get him out of the system, because he clearly was not good to himself, and it was not good for his fellow soldiers for this to be going on, right? And it's just very difficult. At one point in the war, when we were having a double war, one still in Afghanistan, one in Iraq, I mean, we were looking for anybody to get in a uniform and to get out there in some cases, because we really needed the people. And, I remember my husband was talking to one of his friends who was a general and was in charge of some of this. And he said, we really need to get this. He's got PTSD. And the guy who was still in the uniform, a friend of my husband, said to him, the general said to him, Jack, he said, if I let every person out who had PTSD here, he said, we wouldn't have an army. He said, gosh darn, and I'll use those words, it was another word, gosh darn. He goes, sometimes I think I have PTSD. Yeah, I mean, it was just so traumatic. It was so
It's
difficult.
a very traumatic job
you know?
that they perform. It's totally understandable that there would be issues.
You know, and then they come, so they get out, and here's what happens. I know this so well because I worked with it. They come out, and they're going to be discharged, and so they're filling out the questionnaire. Do you have problems? Even, you know, it's bad enough when you're in the military to say that you need some help. But let's say now you're getting out. And, you know, and the form says, do you have PTSD? Do you have problems? Do you need to say? Now, if you say yes at that point, guess what happens? They don't let you get out and see your family. They take you off someplace else and try to go through the whole maneuver. So most of the guys and gals, by the way, you know, they're putting, no, I have no problems. I would just want to get home. Then they get home. And then the problems start.
Manifest and affect everybody else.
Exactly.
And it's ripples.
And in fact, this is very interesting. One of my girlfriends, Kathy McCarroll, she was a roommate in college, just super, super Chapman again, in the mental health social arena. She and a retired judge and several other women from Orange County, they set up a heroes program, Healthy Heroes program, that they implemented for free. They raised the money and they implemented it for free over there at Camp Pendleton, because of course it's part of our vicinity, and to teach families how to cope and how to see the signs to be able to get these military men and women into help. Yeah. And it was a very, very
well, because those families
program.
are impacted, the ripple effect continues. It impacts another generation, and all because they felt that they had no choice but to say, no, I don't have any issues. Exactly. Well, we're going to have issues if we don't take a break. So we're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back with Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, who's running for 3rd District Supervisor seat in Orange County. We'll be right back.
From Eureka to San Diego, from Malibu to Bakersfield, the California Lodging Investment Conference, CLIC, is a one-of-a-kind conference focusing exclusively on our Golden States hotel market. CLIC was launched in 2016 to harness the knowledge of our industry leaders, support our community, and educate emerging talent. CLIC brings together lodging professionals from California and beyond for one day of learning, professional development, and networking. If you're in the California hotel market or plan to be, you should attend CLIC 3 on March 7, 2019 at the Westin South Coast Plaza Hotel. We invite you to check out the California Lodging Investment Conference website at cliconference.com for the latest details. Early registration now open, and as a listener of the Check Out California radio show, please make sure to use our exclusive discount code of CLIC, C-L-I-C, when registering for this one-of-a-kind California hospitality event that's sold out the last 2 years.
All right, get your tickets going fast to the California Lodging and Investment Conference next week over right next door here over at the, what's the hotel? Westin. There you go.
Yeah, shout out for my co-host on the Check Out California show, Craig Sullivan, and this is the 3rd year that he's having this conference. It has sold out 2 years in a row, so get your tickets right away. I am also responsible for the stage, so you can come and tell me how much you hate it.
Hey, we had a couple people kind of tweet in similar questions to this. I'm going to sort of summarize it here. The elephant in the room in this election seems to be the changing face, diversity, whatever word you want to use, of Orange County. We were solidly Republican for as long as I can remember. And in the last presidential election, first time a Democrat, Hillary Clinton, took the county. Didn't win the presidency, but won here in Orange County. In the last election cycle, we saw all the seats flip Democratic here. And now a Democrat's
the blue wave that was basically a blue tsunami, actually, versus a blue wave.
Yeah. And now you're running as a Democrat on the historically Republican Board of Supervisors. What the heck is going on here?
Well, give it a little background, Loretta. I mean, that is an interesting thing. We touched on it on this show, too, here on the air. You know, most people are fiscally conservative, socially liberal. That used to be maybe associated as one side of one party, one side of the other party. But there has been definitely a shift in the face of Orange County, at least the perceived face of Orange County.
Yes, there definitely is a shift. It's not like it just happened yesterday. It's been happening somewhat
Agreed.
over time. Certainly when I ran for the Congress and won against B1 Bob Dornan in 1996, it was a surprise to everybody. I won by 984 votes. A squeaker, got to the Congress, but I managed to hold on to that seat for 20 years, no matter what the Republican Party threw at me.
Right.
And, of course, Lute Correa got the seat after I did, a Democrat. He was actually the last Democrat that we had on the Board of Supervisors. So for over a dozen years, we've had just 5 Republicans on there. And in this last election, what happened? Well, to tell you the truth, a lot of people, regardless of party, are pretty upset at what's going on in Washington, D.C., pretty upset at this president. It's hard to know whether it's over policy, over substance, or whether it's over just the demeanor. A lot of people just don't like a president acting that way. Whatever it is, just, as the young people say, they woke, or they had an awakening that, if every person didn't get involved in politics, we wouldn't be able to get back to at least the middle. And traditionally, most of America, and even in Orange County, most of us are pretty much in the middle. Maybe we're a little on the left of the middle. Maybe we're definitely not. Although Orange County had been known for being pretty far right.
But I agree. With you, and I shared this with you earlier. I think most people are looking at 2016 as being, oh my God, what happened? But in fact, the truth is, 2018. But in fact, what the truth is that I have seen a shift in certain pockets, in certain, with women, with certain age groups. I have seen a shift over the last 10 years. So this is, to your point, didn't happen overnight, and it was probably a return to a more centrist.
Well, the real big thing that happened in 2018 and why we saw this midterm change so much is that a lot more people came to vote.
Yeah.
We used to have about a 20,
as a midterm for sure.
For a midterm, we usually had about 28% of registered voters come to vote in Orange County. We had 71% of them come to vote. And these were people who just said, we've had enough, and we want somebody who's not going to be demeaning and screaming and, involved with Russia, as Rohrabacher, for example, was. And we're going to change this, and we're going to come out. And what they saw was that if they vote, they actually can get somebody else in. And that's what happened in Orange County. All 7 congressional seats flipped, went to Democrats. And the other thing that happened is down ballot, we picked up on a lot of the city councils and school boards, more Democrats or more centrist type of people. And so now the question is, well, will this continue? Was this just a one-time thing? Or are people now seeing that if you vote, you can make a change, and if you make a change, can we deliver on that? So the answer is
which is really the bottom line, right? I mean,
and they're looking at this. They were looking at the supervisor's race, where we've had 5 Republicans on the board, and they have let things happen like lack of a real mental health system in Orange County, like homelessness, where nothing happened until a federal judge came in, like maybe some runaway.
Basically busted them on it.
Some runaway development that, people don't like. So you see a lot of things happen that have happened under a 5-0 board. Well, in this midterm election, we got 1 Democrat on. Now we have a special election. It's going to happen in 12 days. I'm the only Democrat running. There are 6 Republicans. And, so can Loretta Sanchez get through? Well, yes, of course it can get through. If the Democrats come up to vote, if the non-party people, it's about a third come to vote. Even, when my Republican opponents did a poll the other day and released and said 11% of the Republicans are voting for Loretta Sanchez. So I believe that we will win, and we will continue what is a change for Orange County. And then the question is, can we hold that into 2020? I think that especially Democrats
if you deliver, you'll hold it.
And people who had not been involved before but who walked door to door, who talked to people, who said, I can make a change. I see them very energized. I've seen them, very energized in my campaign. It's been raining every weekend, and every weekend we've had over 100 volunteers walking door to door, getting drenched. I mean, torrential rains. You guys have experienced it here in Orange County. You saw what we've had. I mean, we had snow on these mountains here just a few days ago, right? So the answer is they're out, they're talking to people, they're telling people, look at Loretta's record. She's been the one to deliver for Orange County. She's been the one that's been able to work 16 of the 20 years that I was in the Congress. It was controlled by Republicans, and still I brought back the money. I still brought back the policies. I still made an impact in people's lives. So they're going door to door and they're saying, let's not make it Republican. Let's make it Loretta.
Well, and that's actually perfect way to segue this, because the other thing that is missed, and I shared this with you earlier, the only party I was ever registered to was the Republican Party years ago. And I have been non-party affiliated, even though I have had a lot of involvement with stuff with the Democratic Party and with other with a lot of nonprofits on all sides of the equation. I am not party affiliated. And the interesting thing that is also missed, I think, in this discussion usually, when they look at it and they go, there was a lot of non-party affiliated that chose to vote for a Democratic candidate. And I think it is a very positive thing. The way I look at it, it's a very positive thing. If you have that kind of an engagement, if people are that engaged and they are looking at candidates in terms of what they bring to the table and what their record is and what they can deliver on, and giving them a chance to do so, it is no longer about party loyalty one way or the other only. You still have people that are diehards one way or the other, but you have people that are engaged, and they're looking and they're evaluating and they're making decisions based on issues and based on the person. So when you said, let's not make it Republican, let's make it Loretta, actually I think that's a brilliant way to put it as we transition to the end of the show, because I vote issue. I vote person. Okay? Red, blue, that doesn't really drive me. Of course, I will pay attention to somebody's record and whether they leaned too heavily one side on party or the other, because regardless what the issue is, and if I don't disagree with it, I can disagree with people, but I'm not going to base my vote on an endorsement only by party. And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to maybe that. We have a very large increase in non-party affiliated voters. Right? Either party going forward will have to address those people and appeal to what their issues and their interests and what drives them is. So I agree. I mean, I think when I look at the record of the supervisors, Orange County supervisors, and I look at the impact, you hit on a few very important things for me. I am in the construction business in a way, right? I'm in architecture and design, and so I have an interest in this, but irresponsible, inappropriate, mass development, high density, that doesn't have an infrastructure that is sensitive to the built-out communities, that you're going to just slash through natural hillsides and ridges just to basically justify expenditures and money made by consultants and special interests and lobbyists. To me, that is not how you basically act as a servant's heart and take care of people in your county.
Well, the place where we know that we need that we have the biggest housing crisis is in working class people, the working class people's homes. In other words, something that, a person on the lower economic rung can afford. So it's not, putting a big, 6-bedroom, 4,000 square foot home on top of a hill, or slicing a hill and filling a canyon and putting, big horse properties or something out there. That's not where our working class are going to live. So we have to look at our more mature cities, and I've represented them, Anaheim, Garden Grove, Fullerton, Santa Ana, the city where I live in Orange. Yeah. And we see it. For example, we have the Chapman University, so we our students there need housing. Right. So we've gone to things like auxiliary dwelling units, which means that we have these large lots. It could be 8,000 or 9,000 square feet, and we have a 1,200 square foot home on it. We've put a second home in the back. Mm-hmm. that is by far a much more community-oriented
Quality
type
of life driven, absolutely.
Quality of life. It's a more mature couple who usually owns that property. This provides an ability to bring their aging mom or their son's been divorced and has a
Sure.
child and can't afford a $1,900 a month apartment. Now he's living back there with his kid. Or, hey, it provides a second income, an extra income
Student.
for
Yeah.
for the people to have.
Right.
Now they can afford to remodel their house, which has been sitting for the last 30 years in the same state of repair.
Right.
So and actually I've been working on a program for that, for what we call second chance adults, people who've come out of of jail or prison, not with major things, but when that's another group of people who are homeless. They come out, they can't live anywhere, they can't get a job. Nobody wants to hire somebody who's been, arrested or convicted. And so this whole idea of how do we train them to be an electrician or to be a carpenter so that they can, an electrician these days makes $125,000 a year.
It's a big
low,
salary. Yeah.
It's good. And so working with the unions in their apprenticeship program, making it a rotation.
Right. And college is not for everybody.
And college is not for secondary students who want to learn a trade versus going to college. We already know there's too many people who went to college who have high debt, and they're not able to get the kind of job that would reflect paying down that debt.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's another
So
problem.
now they're
we have
saddled
in
with it for the
society.
next 20 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of innovative solutions that we can work on together. It takes a requirement to want to. It takes a knowledge of the federal government, a knowledge of the state government. Hey, we're sending our money there. We might as well be getting it back. It takes somebody who cares about people, again, who wants to bring these people back to life, reintegrate, make them part, not say they're a throwaway person and we don't need to worry about it or send them to San Bernardino. And the county is the place where this happens. It's a place for mental health. It's a place for housing. It's the place for rehabilitation. It is the safety net of our county. And when that is strong and we make people strong, we are all better off for it.
Yeah, I have said it, so that I'm not asking you to say it, and I will say it again. In my opinion, and it may be strong, but you know what? We all live here. We are all impacted by people we put into positions of power in order to look out for us and for our brother and sisters keepers when they need the help. I have said this. I have said there has been an abdication of leadership at some levels, which basically has led us down this path, unfortunately, especially when resources and funds were available, to basically take a different attitude. And the only thing I can come to as a reason is because we would rather just basically kick the can down the road, not really deal with the issue, have it in somebody else's yard, bus it away, if you will, rather than take responsibility for what we are supposed to be doing. And I am glad that at the very least, and it's usually the case in life, that because things have come to the surface, that we are now looking at things a little bit more seriously.
Look, guys, we can do this. My gosh, we live in a great place. We care about each other. I know. I mean, when I look at, I'm a Head Start child. I'm a public school kid. I'm someone who went to Chapman on a labor scholarship and a Cal grant and a Pell grant. The Rotary Club of Anaheim paid for my MBA. I mean, this is what America looks like. This is the greatness of America.
You're absolutely right.
When we invest in each other, when we care about each other, and when we put people in public office who want to give back, really give back for all of the good things that have happened in my life, for everything that my community, I look back and I can point to people. Jim D. Noble, he was my next door neighbor over there in Anaheim when I was going to elementary and junior high and high school. And he worked at North American. Those were the people, those were the engineers who made the Apollo program, okay? And when I was taking calculus in high school, Jim D. Noble, I would go over to next door and he would tutor me in calculus. He saw something in me. He saw that I could do math, and nobody paid him. Nobody said, it wasn't a program. It wasn't a mentorship program.
No.
It was just community saying, you know what, everybody gets a fair shake. Everybody has talents. Let's invest in these people. And over in my life, I have had that happen here in Orange County. People who really cared.
Wonderful.
You know, and we can do that with each other. You know, when did it become wrong to invest in each other? You know, I really look forward to being on that board of supervisors because I think our best days are still ahead of us as a county.
I think on that note, we will end it. Thank you so much, Loretta, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rod.
Thank you very much. It was a very good conversation to have. I look forward and good luck on the 12th.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We're going to be back next week. We look out for our calendar for March. This ends the calendar for February. I could not think of a better person to have as my guest. Again, thank you for being here.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Rod Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.